Have you ever wondered why do teachers change what and how they teach depending on where they are? And why is it so important? Well, let's find out. Hello everybody, and welcome back to another episode of ZoukNerds. In this episode, we will close our Season 4 by continuing the season recap, talking about all of the interviews, the guests, and the most relatable topics that we've had so far. So, let's go. Hello everybody, and welcome back to another episode of ZoukNerds. My name is Alisson Sandi, and today we have our co-hosts Gui Prada.
Hello, people.
And also we have Adayl Iost.
Hello, human beings. How's everybody doing?
And today we're continuing with a part 2 of the episode on season recap of our Season 4 of ZoukNerds, from local to global. And last time we stopped on a little break and we were talking about bolsistas. So for those of you who don't know about this term in Brazilian dance, it's a trainee or a scholarship that you may request and receive to learn dancing in Brazil. And Adayl had a question about, does this still work nowadays, whether it's in Brazil or does it have a space to work outside of the country? So I'll hand it to Adayl to continue this conversation.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's go.
So on our last conversation, we were talking about this bolsista process and how that brought a lot to the teaching style and culture of Pedro and Ana that they were bringing to Toronto now. And I was asking you if you think that this bolsista, this person that comes to a class for free to help with classes in exchange of learning how to dance, if that would have a space on this day and age that we're living right now, if we have any chance of that coming to schools here, and if not, what would be a good solution for that gap?
Well, we do have sort of applied that at District Zouk in DC, and I have applied that concept in previous schools that I worked in Melbourne and in Perth. And yes, but no, but maybe, but sometimes. Because yes, we can have the system of scholarship. Absolutely. I think it's a great opportunity, especially for those who are struggling financially, but are very, very passionate about dancing. If it wasn't for the bolsista system, I absolutely can tell you I would not be here. I would not have the life that I have. I would not have the knowledge and experience that I have today and the platform to be here talking to you guys. Okay, so if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have it. But that was 20 years ago, 20 plus years ago when I was a bolsista. So back then, as Gui was mentioning, the dance school was the source of information. So it was a very attractive opportunity and offer from a dance school for you to be a bolsista, because if you didn't have the means to pay for dance classes, you could still join a dance school and help them out however you can by attending classes or going to socials or helping clean up, set up, decorate, plan, advertise. How many times I went door to door in the entire neighborhood and beyond, putting flyers in the mailboxes because we didn't have Instagram and Facebook back then. So that was the way to promote our dance classes. But I think nowadays, the biggest struggle that we have been facing, let's be more specific to District Zouk here in our local school that the three of us work with, is the reward. What is the reward that the bolsista get? Because to be fair, our bolsistas are not the ones who are struggling financially and need that help to be coming to classes. That's not our bolsista. Our bolsistas are very, very passionate dancers that want to contribute to the community, regardless of the cost itself because they are much older, they are more accomplished people that have a full-time job, and that's why they can afford dancing. So the reward system nowadays is something that needs to be reshaped, and that's being quite a struggle. So Gui,
To say the least.
share a little bit, to say the least, share a little bit more about your perspective on that bolsista. And I think it also can connect a little bit with the situation that we were going through with Leandro and Nayara as well, because they are in another North American community in Miami. So,
Yeah.
what
Yes.
says you, Gui?
Yeah. So I gave the summarized answer no. Last time we talked. Now I want to give a slightly more developed answer. And I think that the system would not work the way it used to be. Like Alisson was saying 20 years ago. The way it used to be, my people, you would get to the school and you say, I want to be a bolsista. And they'll be like, okay, come on in. And then you would do everything for free, the social, the classes, the workshops, all the things. In exchange, you needed to do the classes. And in Jaime, for example, we had a schedule that they would place us in the classes where we were needed. At the time, however, Jaime School had 800 students. So the presence of a bolsista, the presence of a non-paying person over there would not have an impact in the economy of the school. It would actually make it better because it would give the students someone experienced to dance with. And that would give the students a better experience. So a lot of the students were coming to class because they knew that they would be dancing with someone with experience.
Just a quick thing on that note.
Go ahead.
I remember a lot that I don't know if that happened in Rio also, but in São Paulo, we got to a point that we would have auditions for bolsista. How many people wanted to be there? That we're like, oh, we need to have an audition to see if you can be a bolsista or not, which is crazy.
Yeah, exactly. And that happened in Rio too. We had audição para bolsistas, the audition for bolsistas. And the system also provided training. So that's the thing that Alisson was saying. What is the word I use, Alisson? The
Scholarship.
Reward.
Like the thing that we give back, the rewards. The reward we got was we got special training. So we had classes in the afternoon before classes with the students and classes after the class with the students. So we would progress very quickly. And we would get this additional training. And then from the bolsista, the next generation of instructors would come out. So we would have like a constant flow of a new generation coming in. So the new generation of instructors, they were not students necessarily that progressed into instructors. They were bolsistas that progressed into instructors. Yeah. We have the case of Nayara that started as a student, and then progressed into instructor, and then some other cases as well. In Rio, the system was what feeds the next generation is the previous generations of bolsistas that get trained and then eventually get there. So when Alisson talks about the reward that is hard to give, it's really hard because I think these days for us, the bolsista system is a hybrid system where someone is still pays for things and they still get to do classes for free when they are needed, but not that we don't tell people what class they should make. We say, would be very nice if you could come to this class. So they're not obliged to do anything. They can do the thing if they want. And sometimes it's hard for them or it's not on their interest, the reward we want to give. So finding this balance between what people want and what we have to offer, because there is stuff that we see value in it that some other people don't see. The value that they see are in things that we are thinking that they need a little bit more to get. So it's sometimes a problem of points of view. What do we see as a reward that we are providing is not what people that are getting the reward see as valuable for them at that point. So I think our challenge right now is to figure out that balance between what they want and what we have to offer, and also if it's also worthy of everybody's time to go through this process. Because the main issue of the scenes, I think, worldwide is where's the next generation of instructors? If the current ones stop, if the current organized stops, there's a big chance that the whole scene is going to crumble because there's not a next generation coming in. So there's no training pathway for people to eventually become instructors. That used to be the bolsista system. You see, this is the challenging part, I think, for me. If Ashley, for some reason, says, I don't want to do this thing anymore, what do we do? You know what I mean? So I think that's the main thing. There's not a next generation of people coming in that can handle the amount of stress that is to run a dance business, you know?
Yeah, it's interesting because is the next generation of dancers the one that can pay for more training? You know, because the previous generation, I'm saying like 2 generations ago, was mostly the people that couldn't afford dancing. So they became a bolsista because they couldn't afford dancing. And speaking for myself, when I was given that opportunity, it was pretty much the way out of poverty. So I didn't have a second option. I had to make it. I had to succeed in it. 1, because it was my biggest passion. And 2, because I was lucky enough to be given an opportunity to have a career in my biggest passion. But nowadays, what we can see from outside of Brazil, at least, because I'm not in Brazil right now and I haven't been there for a long time, is that a lot of the people that do climb and get to a certain level are the people that can have the most disposable income to invest in traveling, taking private lessons, going to week-long, month-long training sessions.
Exactly.
So how do we change that?
Bro, philosophy talk is the one we are having. Because it's like you say in Australia, it's a conundrum. Because our generation learned for free. We learn for free, right?
But we
And
worked
we
our
want people
asses off.
Yes. And we were dancing from 3 to midnight, right? Monday to Thursday. And then Saturday, Sunday dance with everybody. But the thing is that we had the time. Nowadays, what happens in DC when we try to offer classes late at nights? People want to sleep, bro. This thing doesn't work anymore. It don't work anymore. So even if we offer the thing, there's sometimes no time to take the offer.
Because the information is not scarce anymore.
Yeah.
If there was scarcity of information, which we don't want to, or we don't support, we don't think it's good. But yeah, the model has to change because the scarcity of information is not there anymore. The information is so readily available for anybody who's got internet connection and a device to watch or take classes or do something. Yeah, so nowadays, I think the reward has to completely change. I don't really have the formula at the moment, but let's talk about it. And maybe this could be a whole nother thing for our next season.
Yeah, for sure. We can just do a talk on all these topics that we brought on this podcast. But I think you brought an interesting point on this might be the last generation of people that are coming from this hardships on life. Like you have Mark and Melissa coming from David and Willa. You have Leandro Nayara coming from Veronese. You have Pedro and Ana coming from Rio. That they pass through this process of, I'm a bolsista, I'm here, I'm enjoying the thing, and now they're reaping the rewards of that. I know some communities still have some kind of resource on that note, as you're saying about the reward. I think Dublin does a pretty good job here in Portland with that also. that whenever she brings a traveling artist to do a weekender, she offers a private for the ambassadors here in Portland for free. So they can take a group private lesson with visiting instructors. So that would be a reward. But how can we give more? You know, I think people always want more and more and more for their time and work. And I think on that note, as you guys bring Leandro and Ayara, that what allowed them to live their dream and come live in the US, because they had a group of 6 people in their school in Brazil that they trained a lot to take over their school in Brazil. The school is still running, but then they can live their dream of coming to the US and start their work here and everything. And on that note, I really want to bring Leandro and Ayara's episode that we discussed their methodology, which I think was a really interesting point. And I want to get you guys' perspective on it a little bit further than we had on the episode, because it's really interesting how they both see the dance also on this different perspective, that they construct their entire curriculum not based on levels anymore. It's not that level 1 needs to know this and this and this, and level 2 needs to know this and this and this. They have concepts of classes, and them as instructors, they manage to provide a class for people on all different levels. So we would consider that they have open level classes all the time. I want to know what you guys think about this different approach that they brought to the table, because I remember Gui was very interested about that on the discussion, and Alisson too. And I want to pick her brains a little bit more about it.
And I want to make it even harder, because there's no right or wrong, but I want to make a little challenge for us here. And the 2 extremes of this would be Fernando and Olga, and then Leandro and Ayara, where Fernando and Olga have a very set, structured curriculum and path for the students, where they have to tick each box before they move forward, which is a little bit more similar, not a little bit, quite a lot similar to what we normally do, versus what Leandro and Ayara did and still do nowadays. Once again, it's not right or wrong, because I think we as teachers, we have to adapt and do the best for the community that we're serving. And that's the community that they have been serving or were serving before. So I think to start with, I usually talk about this idea of when you are a teacher, you need to know what's your strength and what makes you happy and what makes you more passionate in class. For me and my brain, structure is key for everything. If anybody knows me a little bit, or if you guys been watching our episodes here, you'll understand that this is how my brain works. So to not have that, I would really have to already understand and have a very strong foundation before I jump into the openness. But on the other hand, for example, people who come to our classes and they're not satisfied with the amount of content or the pace of content that we're giving to them, they might be best fitting in the other model, which is the model of more open concepts, that you can pick what you want to learn when you want to learn, which is more the Leandro and Ayara's methodology. So yeah, this is how far I can go at the moment.
Yeah, I'm with Alisson. I don't think I can go that far. Philosophically speaking, I would need some time experiencing the thing on my skin so I can have like a actual opinion about it, because all I know is the structured leveled approach of teaching dance. As we teach a language, now we have A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, C2. So we learn basic vocabulary, then we learn the verbs and learn the conjugation, then we go ahead and grammar and all these things. So I see a very similar way. So I gravitate more towards what Fernando and Olga do, mostly because I have experienced firsthand how they do it. It's a structure that has a very specific set of goals for leader and follower at each level, at each step of this ladder. So they know very, very, very specifically. And I don't know how the other approach that Leandro and Nayara have would work in practice to teaching someone from scratch. Although, yeah, I really don't know. I would need to hang out there for a little while to see that. In theory, I think it could work, depending on the level of priority, what is being prioritized. Because I have had the experience in Singapore of seeing where before any steps were taught, aspects of lead and follower were taught before steps being taught. And there is something really, really nice that Nelly is doing in the West Coast in California, Nelly Caldera, with her class Moving Grooving, where she's focusing more on putting people's bodies to move using other music, other dances from Brazil, not partner dances, but to start making people move their torsos, their heads, their things. So bring movement into the body and then introduce the patterns. So it's again, working on a different order of things. And because I've seen what Jean did in Singapore, and because of what I can visualize what Nelly does, I see that that's something that I could grasp, So it's still not something that I can grasp. So it's hard for me to talk about it.
No, for sure. As you mentioned, these other examples of Singapore and Nelly in the West Coast, I think it shows a lot on one thing that people, especially students, they don't realize. One of the most important skills that teachers have is their adaptability of figuring out what my students need and give them that, right? Because what Leandro and Nayara mentioned on their interview is that this new concept came from the hardship of COVID. Because before they had about 100, 120 students that they can do progressive classes and everything. And then after COVID, 30 people came back. And then how are you going to offer progressive classes with 5 people in a class? And I think that hardship brought them to a new light and figure out, even in São Paulo, we can consider that they have their school communities, right? Small communities. So they can figure out what does my student community needs for them to progress, what they're looking for, and how can I adapt my teaching skills to them and not adapt the students to my teaching skills, which I think it's brilliant on everyone that we talked about. As Alisson mentioned, Fernando and Olga, what does the European German crowd needs? And that's what we're going to give them on the best of our ability. And what Jim is doing in Singapore, what Nelly is doing in the West Coast, what Leandro and I we're doing in São Paulo, and now bringing to congresses and everything. So on that note, a question for you two that have been teaching around the world locally-ish for the past year and a half. How do you think you guys can bring that adaptability to your own style of teaching? When Alisson is in Taiwan and Gui was in Taiwan and Japan for a little bit, and on these other cultures that are not what we're used to.
For me, the number one focus that I give in my classes to myself as a teacher that I learned from a book that I recently read and kind of gave me the permission to do that, or maybe reinforced me to do that more, because I realized that I wasn't doing enough, which is to let the students tell you how to teach them. Looking back, when I was reading that book. I realized that all of the classes that I was the most happy and the students were the most happy with, whether it was locally or traveling, were the classes where I really opened myself to the students, and the students, not verbally necessarily, but with their body and with their presence, with their attention, they told me, or they showed me a frame on how to teach them. So when I was teaching Taiwan, for example, on and off the last 6 months, the first class was very much, just keep throwing things and see what sticks. So it's kind of like a speed dating. You ask questions and you see what engages the person and what the person is passionate about. Because you don't know until you ask questions and you get that, not a verbal response, but a body response, an excitement response, or when you play music and you see that they're actually trying what you ask them to do. So those are the things that I really focus on as I travel and I teach different people. But even when I'm locally teaching my regular classes, my group from Tuesday this week was blue. Next week, they might be orange. I'm not going to teach a blue class anymore because I need to come in just as we teach in social dancing. Every dance is a brand new dance, even if you've danced with that same person 100 times. As a teacher, this is how I do, and this is how I try my best to do. I, for example, have been to communities where the teacher told me, for my students, you have to do this and this and this and this because, that's what they like, and they're not going to really like your drills. They're not going to enjoy if you don't teach them 500 movements in one class. And I know, look, you're a great teacher and I really respect you. But when you come here, for them to like you, you're going to have to teach like 10 moves in one class. And I'm like, okay, thanks for the feedback. I will come prepared. But in reality, when I came to the class and I allowed them to actually tell me what they wanted from me, the class was just as normal as any other class. I didn't really have to change. Adapt? Yes. Provide them a little sweet, a little dessert? Sure. But I still gave them the content. And a lot of the times we put ourselves into that box of what people expect of us. But instead, if people came to my classes, they want the me that they know about. So instead of me trying to change myself to fit what somebody tells me what I need to do, I'm going to try to be as genuine and as honest as possible, still adapting to the local community to give to them what they most like to work with. But I'm not going to change myself because then I'm not going to be happy with the class for sure. And I'm not going to be happy with my work. So that's how I try my best to do. I allow myself to be open and not to be minute by minute prepared and over plan a class. I cannot do that. One, because I'm not very good at following step by step myself. I kind of like my brain goes everywhere because I'm very much in the moment. For me, a class is kind of an improv. Yes, and yes, and yes, and. So I have my personality and I have my structure and I have the way I teach. But in the end of the day, the students are the ones who are going to tell me.
Yeah, I agree so much. I wanted to talk about this aspect that sometimes people, for my students, go here, go there, do this. I forgot about that. And how many times that happens? It's so fascinating. When you said it, when you said that fact, that thing that happened to you was like all the times that it happened to me came to my head immediately. And I remember that my reaction was really, really similar. I would say, yes, okay. So sometimes when I was not in the mood, I would say, I understand. However, if they came to see me and to take a class from me, I think they want to hear what I want to say, what I have to say to them, or what I want to share with them. So like, let's trust the process and let's see how it goes. And very similar to what Alisson said, things would go very well and we will still do the things that we were told that they wanted or they didn't want it. So as for on the other question, to sum up, I realized that people all over the world are still people, in a sense that the needs are still the same. The desires are very similar. Sometimes there are these cultural differences and there are the particularities of each place that requires you to adapt the delivery of the content. However, the core of the content was not much changed. Like Alisson was saying, it was adapted but not changed. Adapted the how we deliver the content, but the content was still there. And that was something that brought a lot of calm to the soul. Because before I started this whole thing, I thought that I would need to change everywhere I would go because I'm in a different place. But when I realized that I'm teaching people that have very similar desires, very similar needs, the same needs, they are there for a very similar reason. The content that would go well in New Zealand went well in Australia and went well in Japan, went well in Taiwan. And it had very similar results in how it was received by the students in class. So there is adaptations that need to be made. However, I don't think that they are as much as I first imagined them when I was on the plane going to the place. Now, if I travel places, I go with this idea that I'm not talking to a Japanese person. I'm talking to a person that has this and this and that needs. The cultural thing is gonna come. And then when it comes, and if it comes, then we adapt, But the idea at first is to treat people as humans, and then things are gonna be so nice and so easy, actually.
Right, let's get a little deeper just to finish on a very philosophical and emotional way for this episode. Where do you think that fear was coming from? Or how did that fear get into your head that you had to change yourself?
It was the insecurity about the thoughts that the cultural differences would have an impact on how I would need to teach, how I would need to teach my class. So there was this idea that I needed to go over a wall. So I created in my head a wall that I needed to climb to get access to people. So after I got to the place and I see that there was really no wall, I realized it was just a creation in my head. Because, you want to do well. I wanted to do well. I wanted people to like the class. I wanted to open a door so I could come back to that place at some points. So there's also the pressure of wanting to do well. And anything that is perceived as a barrier to doing well gets amplified because you want to do well so badly. I think that was it. It was the fear of not doing well and creating all these barriers, creating these walls that I would need to climb. Some places there were some tiny walls to climb, but they were way lower than I first imagined because of the thing of the cultural differences, the cultural barrier.
I think if I can summarize this, I would write it as the fear of the unknown, which to me, it's a life lesson. It's absolutely a life lesson because we can apply this to anything that we do. If we really understand our why, if we really understand what we bring to the table, and we focus on that in any circumstance or any moment in life, whether you're going for a job interview or you're going to meet somebody or you're going to a different country, then everything is going to be okay because you're going to be your best self. And I think that's why a lot of people say, the more you travel, the more you grow. And not just as a teaching artist, I'm just saying travel, go to another state, go to another country, go to another city. If you don't really have the means to travel so much, get out of your bubble within your own suburb. You hang out with this group of people, and there's that group of people that you never talk to. Maybe go and talk to them, learn something from them, be open. But the fear of the unknown a lot of the times makes us put this costume on and hide who we truly are. And then, guess what? We end up having a terrible experience because we weren't being genuinely ourselves. So it's not because you went to that situation or you talked to that people and their experience was bad. Most of the times, I think it's because when you went to that situation and when you went to talk to those people, you weren't being your true self and opening and showing who you are. And I say this in retrospect to my life and knowing the situations that I did not enjoy and I thought were not beneficial to me. But that was just because I didn't put my true self forward to experience that new thing, the unknown, and really take all the positives out of it. I was talking last week and she was saying to me something very interesting about people who have jobs, who are constantly moving countries, from country to country to country to country. When you have that life, a lot of the times you're already fearing or imagining the worst of living in that country. But then she was telling me, Alisson, there's people who would do anything to actually go and live in that country or to go and live in that city. So there must be a lot to love about that place. And if you don't allow yourself to find that and to feel that, you're going to go in and you're going to hate every single day that you're there. Because there's thousands, millions of people that would probably give up everything just to be in that place. And while you're there, you're not allowing yourself to actually see that, So I think the fear of the unknown and the fact that a lot of the times we put a costume on instead of just bringing our best, genuine, open self forwards is what makes us have a bad experience in many things in life.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And as the dance teacher that we are, this profession that we are, when we come as we are, the content that we want to bring to people, this thing that we are so passionate about and really wanting them to grasp a little bit, it comes out from this place of genuine truth that is oozing out of us. And the person, these people that are listening to you, they absorb it. And they absorb it also in a genuine way. So that was the most valuable lesson that I had. Not to fear them, not to fear the place, not to fear that things are not gonna go well. And to come with this excitement, with this presence, with this authenticity, and deliver the content there is passion about. So that was a very valuable lesson that made life a lot easier and happier in this profession of ours.
Yeah, and the more I do that, the more I feel excited about going to different places. When people ask me, don't you feel a little stressed or nervous about this? And I'm like, yeah, of course, I want to deliver my best. So feeling nervous is not the problem. The problem is when I feel nervous and I'm not myself.
Yes.
So feeling nervous, no problem. But I just keep telling myself, be you, just be natural, do you, and everything's going to be okay. And if you don't have a good time or people don't enjoy, at least you know that you did your best and you were your true self. So yes, this has been an amazing season. I think we learned a lot from every single guest. Everyone that came and shared their experience dropped so much gold, and we're so thankful to them and thankful to you who are listening or watching this podcast with us. This is a big start for the next phase of ZoukNerds that we want to embark. This is the end of the season 4. but we already have big plans and we are very, very excited to release season 5 in a couple of weeks. So for now, enjoy. And if you have missed any other episodes, go back. There's many other episodes before this one. Catch up a little bit, and then we'll see you guys on that next season. Anything else that you'd like to say, guys?
For me, I just want to say thank you guys for having me this season, incorporating me to the ZoukNerds roster. It's been a pleasure for me to be here with you guys and listen not only from all the artist brains that you brought, but you too, as I mentioned on one of the episodes, 2 of my mentors on my dance career. It's a pleasure from the bottom of my heart to be here with you too. Thank you so much. And cheers to this great season that we had.
Thank you, man. Yeah, it was a big pleasure. I'm very excited for our next seasons here at ZoukNerds. And I'm very excited to have this consistency of talks that we learn so much from each other, and then we learn so much from the people we bring. And it's so fascinating to see how much in conversation things come up, right? So I'm very excited for what more is going to come up as we talk more.
Absolutely. And the next season, things will change quite a bit. So in a couple of weeks, you're going to find out why. But we are very excited and we hope to see you there. So beijos, beijos, guys. Abraços. And ciao, ciao from ZoukNerds Season 4. See you on Season 5. Bye.
Bye, people.